Hey, thanks for joining today's episode of Old College Try, the college podcast. Got a great guest today, Dr. Jason Slone, our very own Dr. Jason Slone, talking about his new book and learning a little bit about him and his educational and professional trajectory. I think there's a lot of great tidbits in there too, specifically around how to have these tough conversations around the money piece with your kids, with your partner, and also, again, just some great tips that I think a lot of you will benefit from. So thanks for joining us. Okay, welcome, everybody, CAP followers, CAP heads, parrot heads. We've got a parrot head with us today, our very own, if we can claim him, if you'll allow us to claim you. Jason, so this is Dr. Jason Slone here. He is an expert, a part of our team, a huge part of our team, a very welcome addition part of our team. I think, before I let you introduce yourself, Jason, just from my perspective, I think you're very uniquely positioned to guide students and families and counselors and us, colleagues, teammates, anybody in this college space. I think you're uniquely positioned given you did it yourself. You went into academia, right? You've been You've been and are a professor. You have been a dean. You have put your own kids through college. You have been on the in the private sector, professionally guiding families and students through college, all phases of affordability, very much speak our language. So again, I think just very, very unique in terms of how many, I don't know that you haven't experienced kind of one of the stakeholders in this process. And I think you do it very well. I think you do it very authentically. That's why we're very grateful to have you as a part of our team. Today, we want to learn a little bit about you. We're going to drill down on you, and we want to very much learn about your new book. We'll talk about where and how to find that. First of all, thanks for joining us. Say hello, and we'll get cooking.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. I love being a part of this team. Like when I first started talking with you guys and working with you guys, I was like, oh, I found my home. This is like, my type of people, my tribe, doing the kind of work that matters and makes an impact on the world. And like you said, having gone through this, seen it as a professor and dean, and seen it as a financial advisor, and seen it as a parent, I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys are doing the best work in the world. I'll be a part of it. So I'm super stoked. Love being here, and I'm excited to be on the podcast. Have some fun today.
Yeah, man. Yep, 100%. And I always like to start, right? Some of the stuff I kind of know, right? Based on some of our, late night conversations, bellied up to the bar, but not all of them. And I always like to start at the beginning, right? So just, if you would, to the extent you're willing to share, where'd you grow up? Let's just start right there.
Oh, yeah. So I actually grew up in Ohio, Central Ohio, the cornfields of Central Ohio, a little small town called Shelby, Ohio, about halfway between Cleveland and Columbus. And I was actually the first person in my family to go to college. So I'm first gen, which means I had no idea what the heck I was doing or how to pay for it. And I can talk about that too if you want, all the mistakes I made as a student myself, ending up with loan debt.
I do. I am curious, like, what type of student were you in high school? You take it seriously? Were you you do well? You do okay? You did? Would you
heck
care?
No, man. Heck no, I was a jock. I'm still a recovering jock to this day. Every day is a battle. But no, I was honestly, I was a high school student athlete, and I was like, I wasn't thinking about going to college necessarily, but about my junior year in high school, my baseball coach was like, well, you might want to think about going. I think you could play maybe. And I started getting some letters of interest because I was like, kind of sounds more fun than maybe going to get a job at the factory or in town or something like that. So sports is really what got me there. And I ended up, I visited a couple D1 schools, and I really wasn't D1 material. I'd been riding the pines for the whole time. And my senior year of high school, we got a new baseball coach, which was kind of devastating because I had a really good relationship with my previous coach, and I was our number one pitcher and that kind of thing. And this new guy came in, I was like, who's this guy, And he turned out to be life-changing for me, honestly. He had played at a little D3 liberal arts school called College of Worcester. I think I got my flag back there. College of Worcester in Ohio. And they're D3, heck of a baseball program, and a heck of a school. And he was like, you should try to go to Worcester to play. Go visit. And I was like, I don't know. Seems like a lot of smart kids go there. And he's like, no, you can do it. You're smart enough to go there. And so I went to visit, fell in love with the place, ended up going there in part because they actually offered me a pretty good financial aid package, and I don't know what went on behind the scenes because D3 they don't offer scholarships, athletic scholarships, except maybe they do. They just call them things like presidential leadership awards or something. I don't know, but I got a pretty good financial aid package. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, that's for sure, and so Worcester gave me a financial aid package that made it possible for me to go, and which is kind of interesting because a book came out recently, The Price You Pay, about financial aid in college and so forth, and he actually singles out the College of Worcester as one of the best in the country in terms of transparent financial aid practices and working with families and so forth. So just totally lucky. I just got completely lucky that my coach came from this little college, and I got in, went and I only played a year and a half there, and I didn't play very long. But when I got to college, I realized, oh, I actually like this. I like college. I like reading and writing and going to class and learning and stuff like that. So I always joke that I went in as an athlete and came out as a student, and had a great experience at the College of Worcester. Our coach was fantastic. His son was my classmate and in my wedding, and we were buddies. So I have a lifelong appreciation for Coach P. If he's listening out there, Coach P, appreciate all you did for me, bud.
I mean, and he's probably listening, right? I mean, who's not, right, Jason? I'm sure he's
Well,
listening.
a quick story, Coach P's son, my buddy Tim, I actually helped him with some college planning for his son Tyler, who played baseball at the Ohio State University and now is in the Phillies organization. So rooting for that kid.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out. Well, good luck. Okay, so it's really cool. It's so funny that how many people, I have some version of that. It's just kind of like dumb luck, so, but that's interesting. And then, so I love high school coaches, man. What an impact, all coaches, right? What an impact they can have. And again, change the whole trajectory of your life, it sounds like. And then where'd you go?
Also, sorry to interrupt you, Carl, but the other thing too is going to a small liberal arts college. I really had a lot of mentorship from the professors and the teachers. Like had I gone to maybe a big D1 school and sat in a lecture hall with 300 kids, I don't know if I'd have done as well and made it. I just had a lot of people, hey, missed you in class. Where were you in class on Monday? That kind of thing, like paying attention to who I was. And I really helped a lot. So I still to this day, have fond memories of some of the teachers who just really helped me get through. And that's one of the big advantages of those small liberal arts colleges.
Understood. I benefited from those guardrails as well, I think. And I remember my wife went to UC Santa Barbara. I went to go visit it after I graduated and took the steps from the back of her dorm onto the beach. And it's Thursday afternoon. The kids are having a keg party. 5 days here. How do you anyways, heaven on earth, but I needed those guardrails. Yeah. Okay, cool. So College of Worcester, had a great experience, came out a student, and then just give us the Cliff Notes version of kind of the career path that put you, and I'm sure it was, ebbs and flows. And I know you wear a couple different hats, couple different credentials, bunch of letters next to your name. Give us the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, Cliff Notes version when I went to college, I was an economics major, and I interned for 2 different Edward Jones financial advisors while I was in college. One of them, interestingly enough, was named Larry Million, which is a great name to have if you're a financial advisor. But anyway, I was going to go work for Edward Jones as a financial advisor. And my senior year at Worcester, Worcester's famous for their they have this IS program where you have to do independent study program. You have to do a research project, and I got honors on it. And my advisor was like, "Man, you should go to grad school and be a professor." I was like, "What?" So I wasn't quite sure. I had an offer from Edward Jones on the table. But then my other buddy corrupted me and said, "No, we should jump in a car and drive to Key West and live on a boat." And I was like, "That sounds great. Let's do that." And so that's what I did. After graduating from college, my buddy and I drove to Key West and lived on a boat for a while. And I tried to be Jimmy Buffett up there, my favorite philosopher, Jimmy Buffett.
Let me break in there. Were you always a musician? Was that growing up? Did you learn after college? When was that always a part of your life? Because by the way,
yeah, my dad played, and so I think I inherited the bug from him, and I kind of noodled around a little bit, nothing serious throughout high school, but I more wanted the lifestyle than the music career of Jimmy Buffett. When I moved to Key West, we lived on a boat. But I wasn't there very long. It was there from 95, 96, and I was like, I got to do something with my life. And so I decided to go chase a PhD. I was like, look, I can always go be a financial advisor, but I need to probably go to grad school while I still know some stuff. And so I ended up leaving Key West and went to the Ohio State University for a master's degree in philosophy. It was called something weird. It was called Comparative Studies and Humanities, but they were trying to be innovative. It was really philosophy. And so fell in love with it, just fell in love with philosophy, the field, and then went on and got a PhD at Western Michigan. At the time, Ohio State didn't have a PhD in my field. So I transferred to Western Michigan and finished my PhD there. Started teaching. I became a professor in 2002. And I taught for a few years and got married and had a couple of kids. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I'm not making any money. I always joke. My first year with a PhD in hand, I made $31,000 was my salary. This was 2002. And my wife was a substitute elementary school and made $32,000. So when when you start having kids and bills and that kind of thing, I was like, there's just not enough money in this professor gig for me. And so I called up Edward Jones. I was like, hey, my guy I knew there, and they're like, yeah, come on back. So in 2008, I got actually, this is the craziest story. If you're in higher ed, you'll understand why it's crazy. I was awarded tenure in 2008 and then walked into the dean's office and said, thank you, I'm retiring. And so I became a financial advisor in '08, the summer and fall of '08, which if you know anything about the history of
Time.
the market, that was very bad timing. So I opened trained all through the summer, opened my business in the fall, and then the market crashed. And so
And then you lost all your clients' money. A couple days
right.
after you
Yeah,
hung your
knocking on doors. Hey, you should invest with me. They're like, what?
yeah,
No,
right.
that's a terrible idea. So was there for not quite 2 years. And then I actually got the opportunity of a lifetime. And this is a whole different podcast. We could talk about it. But I got an offer to be sort of almost the founding dean, not really the founder, but sort of the founding academic dean of a startup college. And this was '09. And long story short, there was a ed tech company called Altius Education that raised quite a bit of money, I think 29 million through a couple of rounds to start an online college. And it was a great idea. I still think it's a great idea. And it was going to be America's transfer college is what we called it. The idea was this was kind of the early stages of the online learning kind of revolution. Everybody's doing online learning now, but back then they weren't. And so we raised money, and the idea was we would start an online community college, which we did. You could do 2 years online with us. That was called Ivy Bridge College, no matter where you lived in the country. And then we went on inked 2+2 agreements with all the flagship universities in the 50 states. So the idea was you could be in rural Georgia, rural Ohio, where you didn't have access to a college or university, do your gen eds with us, your general education requirements with us for 2 years, and then transfer. As long as you have a certain GPA, you'd get into Ohio State or get into Georgia or whatever and finish up there. And so it was great. Wonderful experience. I got to build a team. Our first class, I think we had like 30 students. And by the time it was over, it was over 3,000 students. And it became this interesting bureaucratic legal nightmare. It's like I said, it's a whole different podcast, but it's now actually a business case study at Stanford Business School. It's a case study at Stanford Business School on just how difficult it is to innovate in higher education. We were one of the most innovative attempts at innovation, I should say, in higher ed probably in 50 years. I'm proud to be a part of it, but it crashed and burned because of the bureaucratic nightmare that is higher education. And ironically, now that I'm doing this, with College Aid Pro, helping families lower the cost of college, I think it's one of the reasons college costs so much is there's very little room for innovation. And, I always joke that for an industry full of very, very, very progressive people, it's one of the most conservative industries that we have when it comes to change and innovation. So anyway, I lasted there for a number of years. It got that was closed down by creditors.
It almost sounds like you guys were too early.
We were.
I mean, if somehow you kept your head above water, and again, I can only imagine how hard it was proved to be impossible, but just a little bit too early, right? You guys would have been poised to capture that market, but you had the right idea, right? And it sounds like you executed. It was just before people were open to it.
Yeah. The accreditors were like, no, we don't understand what you're doing. This is not how we do college. We're like, yeah, I know. That's why we're doing it this way. We want to make things different and better. And so they're like, no, we're not in favor of that. So yeah, like I said, you can go to Stanford Business School, and it's one of the case studies. So anyway, when that ended, I ended up as a dean at Georgia Southern University and have been at Georgia Southern. I was a dean for a couple of years there, and then the University System of Georgia consolidated Georgia Southern with another university, and 2 deans had to become 1 dean, and et cetera, et cetera. So I actually sort of volunteered to step down as a dean and go back to being a professor. So since 2017, I've been professor. Still teach there a couple days a week, couple classes. I still love the classroom for the most part. It's challenging these days with AI and all kinds of other things, but I really like Georgia Southern because it's affordable. It's a good regional public. It's actually featured in a recent book called Dream School. And and this is actually related to my own personal story as a parent. Part of the reason I stepped back to being a professor was the schedule. It's a cushy schedule. And so it allowed me to spend more time with my kids. My kids are growing up and, sports and all that kind of stuff. And so about 2017, 18 or so, my oldest son started thinking about college. He's in high school, and he was a football player, so he was thinking all these different schools. Worcester recruited him, a few other places, and I was like, okay, let's start looking at this. And when I started looking at the costs, I was like, whoa, we can, how are we going to pay for this? And so I actually took a deep dive into college financial aid planning just for personal reasons for my own kid. And I sort of like got caught the bug. I was like, this stuff's amazing. Every parent needs to know this stuff. This is crazy. And I was sort of embarrassed, like, wow, I was a financial advisor. I was a dean. Like, I knew a lot of this stuff, but I hadn't seen it through the eyes of a parent yet. And when that happened, it clicked for me, like, I want to do this. I want to help people this. So getting into college financial planning was really personal at first. And then I was like, oh, I'll help friends and family. And it was like, well, I'll hang a shingle. And then eventually found College Aid Pro. I was like, those are the guys I want to work with. They're the ones they're the best in the business. So that's how I ended up getting into this was my own son. And long story short, about on that front, we were very fortunate that grandparents had helped out our kids, and left some money in a 529 plan. Of course, we were going to contribute and so forth. So, but I did a college financial plan with my own son, my oldest son, and it did again the second time with the second son. I was like, well, look, buddy, this is the budget. Okay, your budget is X. You can go play football at these other schools out of state, and it's going to cost you X plus Y, right?
Mhm.
And so, we're not going to go into debt for you because you have affordable options in the state of Georgia.
Mhm.
My son was just going to play football for fun. He's not going to get drafted or anything. I was like, you can go have fun and play football, but I'm not going into debt for you to go have a 4-year party. So we did math, and I was like, if you stay in the state of Georgia, we're fortunate in the state of Georgia, we have the Hope and Zell Miller Scholarship Program, which is pretty much tuition free if you have a certain GPA in the state. So you can stay in state and graduate debt free, and maybe even have a little bit left over if you want to go to get an MBA or law school or something. Or you can go out of state and graduate with debt. Now let's do a loan calculation. This is what your take-home pay is probably going to look like. This is how much you're going to have in a loan payment. Now, here's your choice. Do you want to go out of state, play football, and have a party for 4 years, and then graduate with a loan payment? Or do you want to stay in state and play golf and fish? It's just what my kid loves. And I was like, it's up to you, pal. And he thought about it, and he thought about it for a while, and he came back and he said, I'm going to stay in state. And so both of my kids have decided to do that. They both go to Georgia Southern, getting a great education. It's what you do while you're there. I told both of them, I was like, look, it doesn't matter where you go. It's what you do while you're there. And they're both going to graduate debt free, and I'm not taking out parent loans. And my kid played golf yesterday. And so
Let me
that's
ask
sort
you.
of tying it all together there, but that's sort of the background.
Let me pause you there and ask a couple questions, because I think it's something that, like, most families struggle with this part of it. Because you made it sound kind of easy there, right? And so I do want to, because there could be some helpful takeaways. Was it contentious for either of his sons? Was it what the hell, dad, type of deal? Was there any of that, or was it more just, this is your choice and here's the numbers and tell me what questions you have? I'm just curious of what, I don't know, the spirit of those conversations were, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I get it. I'm a parent. You want the best for your kids, right? It wasn't very contentious. It was more, let's just do the math and then you make the choice.
Hmm.
That's that's been my parenting philosophy all along, but here are your decisions. Well, I think there's some fancy term for it, natural consequences parenting or something like that. I don't know. There's some word for it, but also, I probably had a little bit of advantage as a parent having been in higher education on the inside, knowing, look, the professors at Georgia Southern are just as good as the professors at UGA and Georgia Tech, which are just as good as the professors at Harvard and Yale and Dartmouth and Brown. I
Hmm.
just know that personally. I have friends who teach I was actually a visiting lecturer at Dartmouth, so I got to spend some time there. Like, I know I'm in the business. And
Hmm.
so I know you're not necessarily going to get better professors at a very, 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 very expensive school. So that probably helped. But for me, it was more like my kid's about to be an adult, and it's
Yeah.
time to start making adult decisions. And adulting means doing the math of finances, because financial stress is just terrible, right? And
Yeah.
so that's how I approached it with both of my kids. Like, look, this is just math. This is the budget. This is how much money is available. If you go above that, you're going to borrow against your future, and it's going to hurt your lifestyle. What do you want to do? And
d-
fortunately, they both decided, in my opinion, they made the right decisions. But the way I framed it to them was, do you want to fish and play golf, or do you want to pay a bank a student loan payment? So I think framing it that way maybe helped and moved the needle. But
I-
also, I never felt the pressure like, and I know a lot of parents feel this pressure like, I have to send my kids to the top ranked, most prestigious, fancy school ever, or else they're going to be failures in life. I never felt that pressure as a parent because I knew that just wasn't true. And so maybe that helped.
I think that might be a unique advantage, maybe from the parent perspective. I see it just as I'm hearing you say this, because I know, a lot of parents right now, and one of the things that gets me most frustrated about our friggin' rigged system here is that so many parents right now having the conversations every day. So are you. They're feeling all this guilt and shame. How come I couldn't save $400,000 per kid, right? I don't
Yeah.
see how I could have worked any harder. Me and my partner are working our asses off just to pay the bills. But I feel bad that, I don't know if you had any of that. It doesn't sound like it. I mean, how do you have, when you're having those conversations with parents that are having those feelings of like, almost like I let my kids down, right? Like, which is just freaking horrible. And we know it's not true, but they're going through that. Like, how do you coach parents through that because I know you have those conversations?
Yeah, I'm having them right now, actually, with parents of
Exactly.
seniors. It's
Yeah.
tough. It's tough. It's sort of feel like a quasi therapist at time, right? Like, and what I try to remind parents is this is not your fault that college has gotten this expensive. And this is not your fault. And oh, by the way, your kid is going to do well no matter where they go. I say this over and over and over again. If your kid is the kind of kid who has a shot at getting into a super prestigious, highly ranked school, your kid's going to do fine in life no matter where they go.
Mhm.
Okay. And so just try to remind parents it's about the kid and who they are and what they do. It's the individual, it's not the institution. That's my mantra. It's the individual, it's not the institution. And I
Mhm.
try to share with them personal stories occasionally. And like, look, I was a visiting lecturer at Dartmouth. I've seen the education there. Occasionally I'll joke with them and, try to lighten the mood and say, if your kid ends up at an Ivy, they're going to do well in life despite having gone to an Ivy League college. And
Right.
just kind of try to joke with them a little bit. But yeah, the parents, to me, I think parents need to remember, number one, it's not their fault. They didn't do anything wrong. It's just
Okay.
college has gotten crazy expensive for all kinds of reasons, complicated reasons.
Yeah.
But secondly, your kid's probably going to be successful in life no matter where they go. So it's okay to make, an affordability based decision rather than a prestige based decision. And it's not something to feel bad about at all. And 10 years from now, you'll look back like, oh, my kid had a great experience. I also tell a personal story from my own family, my extended family a lot. My cousin, she and her husband are both medical doctors, and the husband, he just got a fellowship, one of the most prestigious fellowships in the world at Johns Hopkins,
Heard of
and
it.
they both went to the University of Toledo undergrad.
Hell yeah.
Okay, a regional public in Ohio. Now they could have gone kind of anywhere. They're super bright, achieving kids, right? One time I was talking to my cousin, like, why'd you go to Toledo? And she's like, it was the most affordable place we could find. We knew we were going to med school. We want to go to med school. So why overpay for undergrad? Toledo gave them a great deal because they're bright kids. And they were smart enough to take advantage of the fact that if you're the kind of kid who could maybe get into an Ivy or super high, super elite school, you can use that to advantage, go down maybe one tier in rankings. I hate rankings, but if you go down one tier, those colleges will a lot of times they'll throw money at you if you're that kind of kid, and you can go take advantage of that. That's what my cousin did. And look, they're both great. She's a medical doctor. He's a medical doctor. They're just thriving. I always joke too, like they're taking vacations to Hawaii while their colleagues at the hospital are making giant loan payments.
And maybe you just said it, but I'm curious from the student perspective. I know again you're having these conversations every day, as is myself and everybody on our team, of these students, and it tends to be the ones that are pretty serious students and are making these hard decisions, and they can't help but put so much emphasis into the again rankings or the Instagram culture. I can't imagine how hard it is now with social media and this one got in here and this one got in their dream school here, just so in your face, right? You and I didn't have to experience that. And that would have been hard for me. I know, especially I would have been more self-conscious about that. I was already self-conscious but it was less in my face, right? How do you coach up the kids that are like, I'm thinking of I'm in Mass here, right? And UMass Amherst is such a great state school, right? And again, let's be clear. Jason talked about Georgia's program and how affordable it is for in-state students. Sometimes Emory is more affordable than the in-state schools, right? Everybody's different in terms of their family's their family's dynamic and the college's business model. So it's not always, let's be clear on this, and we say this a lot on this podcast, it's not always the state school that's the most affordable option. Okay, so that's a common mistake that some families can make, but sometimes that is the case, right? And I think about students that are maybe get into UMass Amherst here, which is not easy to do, but they get into some of these other, what they think are more prestigious private schools that are double the cost, or an out-of-state state school that's double the cost, but they feel like these classmates that were not nearly as serious as students as me are going there too, and it feels like they're settling, I guess might be the word. Coach that up, because I'm sure you're having those conversations all the time too, and so maybe sometimes it's through the parents of like these kids feel like, again, I think settling is a fair word.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, social media has made things worse for sure. And, shame on the colleges for exploiting that, to be honest with you. That's a whole different conversation. But I'm having this conversation with a couple of clients right now. The kids are devastated because they got waitlisted. And so I'm trying to help them understand, like, look, college is more competitive than ever. Things like the Common App makes it easy to apply to so many colleges. The colleges have, just more applicants to choose from. You got a problem of grade inflation throughout the country. Everybody's got high grades now, and so standing out is more difficult than ever. Admissions decisions are irrational in many ways. And so I always tell the kids, it's not you, it's the system. And you're going to be okay. You have great options elsewhere. And the most important thing, I think, is fit. Where do you fit in? Who are your people? What kind of programs do they have? What is the campus life like? Those kinds of things. But I sometimes will joke with students, what's that? There's a country song, unanswered prayers something are the greatest, because sometimes you never know if you get in somewhere and you go and you hate it. Well, so trying to help these kids understand it's not you, it's the system. It's more competitive than ever. And you have a lot of great options, and love the college that loves you. Love the school that loves you. I see a lot of families, colleges are just being kind of rude to them and not even entertaining appeals when the parents have had major changes in circumstances, and just not very, warm and friendly and charitable and generous and helpful for these families. And I'm thinking, why would you want to send your kid there? Love the school that loves you. And then I try to remind the kids too, like, it doesn't matter where you go. What matters is what you do while you're there. So instead of, when it comes to the super prestigious schools, they're really hard to get in. The highly rejective schools, as I joke, not highly selective, but highly rejective.
Right.
Those are lottery schools. It's not even reach schools. They're lottery schools. It's not even that you might get in. It's like you're winning the lottery if you happen to be lucky enough to get in. And a lot of times, it has nothing to do with your grades and test scores, because at that level, everybody's got good grades and test scores. They're trying to craft a class. If you know anything about the admissions system, they're trying to pick, kids for different reasons. It has nothing to do with, your success or achievements or ability as a student. It has to do with what the school's looking for rather than who you are. So that's why, yes, I go.
Well, one thing that I say is the kids that get accepted into those schools, it's not their fault, right? It's not their fault. Like that's kind of how I look at it. So of course it's also not if you don't get in. So I want to make sure we take a couple minutes to talk about your book here, Jason. Specifically, I mean, look I told you this before, kind of in the beginning or off in the green room, wherever we were. I think you are one of the most uniquely positioned people in our country to write a book about college. Again, just because you've been on every side of this desk and had the conversation from every angle, professionally, personally, and again, on that professional side of it, just kind of all ends of the spectrum. Which is why I thought it was such a great idea, such a supporter, why I'm a huge fan, why I think anybody, anywhere in this college space should read it. But just talk to us about, first of all, just give us the basics. What's the name of the book? Where do we find it? But kind of, I guess, why and why now specifically for you?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate all those kind words.
Yeah.
So the book is called Too Rich for Aid, Too Poor to Pay. And the subtitle is A Former Dean Spills the Beans on How College Financial Aid Really Works. And the idea for the book is, I'm simplifying a lot here, but if you're very, very low income, or you're very, 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 very affluent, you're probably going to be okay with college. The people who really need help are the ones who are kind of caught in the middle. And that's my joke. They're too rich on paper, to get financial aid, to get need-based financial aid help, but too poor to pay for college for one kid. If you got multiple kids, it seems impossible. So, and then the subtitle is, look, I'm going to spill the beans on how this stuff really works. Because it turns out you might not be too poor, too rich for aid. It turns out you might have some misunderstandings about how the financial aid system works that are preventing you from getting the aid that is available to you. And so it's designed for those families who feel squeezed by the system, who think they can't get any financial aid, who think there's no way they can put their kids through college without, taking on a pile of debt or robbing their retirement savings. There are ways to do it. You just need to know how the system works. So that's why I wrote the book. The second thing is it's short. It's a very short book on purpose, because as a parent, I know that if you're working, you got travel ball and after school activities and homework and cleaning the house and laundry, you're busy. There are a couple of really, really great books out there on financial aid, but they're very long and it takes a while to get through them. And I was like, I want a book where parents could read it in less than an hour. And I actually tested it. I 9 or 10 families, I sent it out. I said, tell me how long this takes you to read. And the average was like 30 to 45 minutes. I was like, perfect. I want you to be able to get through, in 1 hour or less. And it's just a guide. It's not an encyclopedia. It's not this big, thick, full of tons of detail and jargon and the complex formulas of the SAI calculation for institutional. And it's none of that stuff. It is like, these are the major things you need to understand about how the system works, so that you can then take action to cut the cost of college, no matter what your income tax bracket is. And so, and I wanted to make it available to as many people who can, who are interested in learning this stuff. And so I put it up on Amazon.com. I have an ebook version, and I'm actually selling it at 99 cents here for the first month or so, just so everybody can get a really, basically a free copy. And then the paperback is available. If you want a paperback, it's $10 for the first month or so here. But so it's affordable, it's easy to read, and it just gives you the big stuff you need to know. It doesn't get too much into the weeds. But if you read the book and you follow the plan, I put in there a 6-step plan. Just do this step 1, do this step 2, do this step 3, and you can cut the cost of college. Now, also in the book, I tell the reader, like, look, if you have questions or you want some help with all this, of course, reach out. You might want to get some professional help, because this stuff is complicated and the stakes are high. But at least it should give parents a little bit of relief, a little bit of clarity about how the whole thing really works, to kind of help them clear up some misunderstandings about college financial aid and costs. And you don't have to pay full price, and you don't have to overpay, and there is financial aid available, those kinds of things. So I just it's a hopeful book. I hope it's hopeful. But the parents that have shared with me that they've read it, they said, I love that it's short. I love that it wasn't full of jargon and technical stuff. It was super readable. I even tell some terrible dad jokes at parts in there to keep it going. But most of all, it was like, it just gave them a sense of relief. Like, oh gosh, okay, there is something we can do about this to get the cost down. So that's what the book's all about.
We're really proud to endorse this, and we think it's somebody whether you're a student, especially if you're a parent, it's just something you should read regardless of where you are in this process. It reads, the tone is similar. You've got to know Jason a little bit over the last 30 minutes or so here. That's what comes across. A genuine dude who knows what he's talking about, has been in your shoes, and again, personally and professionally, and says here's the roadmap, right? So that's what it accomplishes. Again, we're talking 45 minutes, an hour to maybe save yourself a lot of money, a lot of stress. So do that. Go to Amazon.com, 99 cents. Get the paperback for $9.99. I think that's going to be that's going to be kind of the promotional pricing for the next couple of weeks. So do yourself a favor, do it today. We'll link to it in the show notes too. But Jason, before we let you go, I almost forgot the most important part of this whole thing. Got to give the people a tune. What tune should we be listening to? Especially as a music guy, one music guy to the other here, wannabe musician, actual musician. But, and I know it's a very hard question, right? And if you got to give us a couple, give us a couple. But who should we be listening to today? What should we be listening to?
My goodness, that is such a hard question. I have such a wide range of musical taste, but great question. So I got to start with, I teach courses in the philosophy and religious studies department, Georgia Southern. So I got to give you a tune by my favorite philosopher, And that's Jimmy Buffett, of course. Yeah. And since it's higher ed themed, I'm going to give you a one you may never have heard, that the folks might not have heard of. It's called Domino College. Go check that one out by Jimmy Buffett. But yeah, Jimmy Buffett's the man. He's my favorite philosopher. So anything by Jimmy Buffett's pretty good. Tin Cup Chalice is my favorite Jimmy Buffett tune. If you don't know that one, it's just absolutely fantastic.
Tin Cup Chalice and College Domino. Wow, because I like Jimmy. I'm not, I'm again wannabe parrot head type of deal, but I can't say that I know those the deep cuts. Mine, I don't know if you'll approve, but I'm a big Son of a Sailor guy. I'm a big Pirates at 40. What are some of the other ones? I mean, whatever.
Yeah, Pirates at 40 is one of my favorites.
So many bangers. What a guy. What a brand he created. And you tried to chase down that lifestyle. You did it for years. You still got time, Jason. You still got plenty of time. When this book goes viral, you're going to catch up.
Yeah, as soon as I get that recording deal from Nashville.
There you go. There you go. And in addition to getting Jason's book, if anybody wants time with him, you can book time with Jason right through our website on collegeaidpro.com and just say, hey, I want to talk to this guy. He seems to know what he's talking about, and put him to the test, because he sure does. Jason, appreciate you, buddy, and we'll have you back on again.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. A lot of fun.
We'll see you.
See you. Take care.
Okay, we hope you liked today's episode of Old College Try. Thank you to our guest, Dr. Jason Slone. I am Matt Carpenter. If you got anything out of this, please share it. Please like it. Please follow us. And today's episode was produced and edited, as always, by our very own Eileen Campbell. Thank you.